if your commitment to your constitutional rights is so strict and inflexible that you refuse to make any effort to manipulate the police officer's discretion, it's a common thing. The police arrive on the scene, you ignore them and pretend like they're not there. That makes them escalate to verbal direction. Stop that, go there, do this, all right? And if you don't comply with that verbal direction, they're going to escalate to physical control, to empty hand control. Typically, empty hand control starts with the hand on the upper arm. And the hand on the upper arm is a good start because it's a limited use of force. It does, in terms of the kinetics of human movement, it's a good way to get control over somebody without provoking too much of a response. I mean, you really shouldn't just tackle somebody, although some police officers do that, all right? They put their hand on you, okay, and I talked before about sub-levels, okay, within. There's a lot of sub-levels on the empty hand control. It's a natural human response when somebody grabs your arm to pull away, okay? Well, if you pull away, it's going to get worse. All right, it's going to get worse. I mean, I've got a case involving an activist now who, they put the hand on the arm, he pulled away. And 2 minutes later, he had 18 law enforcement officers on him, and he died of restraint hypoxia. And, I mean, people should recognize the risks they're taking when they confront a police officer. That activist did not expect to die that day. He did not expect to die that day. And the more you resist, the more they escalate. Okay. For instance, passive resistors know that. All right, people who engage in passive civil resistance. All right, they're trained, that they know they're going somewhere, they're going to do something that is going to get them arrested. All right, so they are taught to go limp, okay, because they know if they do anything other than limp, the police will escalate. All right. And in some cases, the police are happy to accommodate you if you resist them. The more you resist, I mean, a lot of times, especially if a police officer has a political agenda that disagrees with yours, he's looking for an excuse to hit you. And if you pull away from him, he's got it. So, I mean, you have a choice when you're confronted with a police officer. You can choose to provoke escalation on his part, all right, or you can choose to de-escalate and diffuse the situation. I can't really tell activists that they have to diffuse the situation with the police officer, especially when they're not violating any laws and they have a right to insist on their constitutional rights, all right? They do have that right, and I respect people who do that, all right? But you should know what you're doing, and you should know what the likely consequences of it are, and you should make a decision, preferably in advance, when you do something that is likely to lead to an encounter with law enforcement. You should make a decision, not in the heat of the moment, okay? You should make a decision in advance. Am I willing to get arrested for this? All right, do that before you go, all right? And then you'll be better prepared to make the right choices when the confrontation comes. Because when the confrontation comes, it's going to be nervous and difficult, and there's a risk you'll make a snap decision and act on impulse. And So it's a good idea to make a decision before you go on the action. Is this a circumstance where I'm willing to get arrested? And if it is, stand on your rights. Okay. If it's not a circumstance where you're willing to get arrested, all right, then consider demonstrating compliance to diffuse the situation so that the police officer leaves you alone and lets you do what you're there to do. It's an unfortunate thing because a lot of people get arrested and they really didn't want to get arrested and they don't understand why they got arrested. And they feel bad when they get arrested because they did not come there to confront the police. They came there to deal with some other issue. They came to deal with the war. They came to deal with there's a million issues out there. Or they came to deal with global warming. All right, and then all of a sudden their effort is sidetracked by a confrontation with the police. All right. So it's best to think about that beforehand. Do I want to get sidetracked today onto the issue of police brutality? Or do I really want to keep my eye on the ball and focus only on this issue I'm there for? And if it's the former, okay, well, know your risks and know that sometimes people get hurt or end up in jail or end up dead because they confront police officers, and be aware of your risks, and take appropriate precautions. But if you're not there to confront the police, if you're there for some other reason and your decision is that you don't want to get sidetracked into a confrontation with the police, well then consider using the matrix. Consider putting the matrix to your advantage, and consider manipulating the psychology of the police officer in such a way that he or she just lets you do your work and accomplish what you came there to accomplish. Sometimes people go there in order to get arrested, and I have great respect for people who do that, and I don't want to dissuade anybody from doing that. And and the headlines become about the arrest and not necessarily about your issue. But that can work the other way too. Sometimes by getting arrested, then you get the headline.
Right.
So I do have great respect for people who are willing to get arrested for a cause. But before you go, decide whether or not you're one of those people. Right. Don't let the police officer make that decision for you. Right. Okay? Do not let the police officer make that decision for you. Make the decision yourself.